This has to do with what Ambassador Chan Eng-chi said in a recent interview when she talked about what the PAP needed to do to win back votes. And she said that it needs more politicians and fewer technocrats. Do you agree with her analysis? And how do you think the PAP can win back the seats it has lost?
Eng-chi's view was a historical one. She had earlier on written about how Singapore was going through a period of depoliticization in the earlier years, and it had become an administrative state. Now it is going through a period of re-politicization. That's her phrase, and I agree with her, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And it requires new political ways on that part of the PAP, as well as everyone. We should never think that Singapore's ability to think through policies for the long term and that are in the interest of the average Singaporean should be compromised. And I think if we weaken that ability, weaken that premium Singapore has, then it will not improve our politics, and it's not going, more importantly, it's not going to improve the quality of life for ordinary Singaporeans. So what we've got to do is to improve our politics so that we can keep to that discipline of thinking long-term and doing what's in the best interest of Singaporeans. If we don't improve our politics, we'll be prone over time to becoming a little more short-term, a little more populist, just to win the vote. You have more problems cropping up, and you get a greater degree of disparity in society developing over time. That's in the nature of things. You look at the Western societies, electoral cycles are, people never think more than one electoral term ahead. But divisions have widened, envy has widened, dissatisfaction has increased. And it means making sure that while we retain a long-term orientation, always think about what's over the horizon in the interests of Singaporeans. We've got to make sure that we communicate policies well and make sure that we're serving with a heart, which is not just about policies, but about how you conduct yourself on the ground. What you do on the ground and whether people feel you're serving with a heart is critical in politics. And I would say that, even there, I would say PAP MPs work very hard at it. They don't always get credit for it, but I know so many of my colleagues in the PAP who work very hard on the ground, unsung work, no attention at all, helping people, thinking of new initiatives on the ground. They work with a heart.
Do you see the next PM in this current batch?
Yes, I do, but I can't tell you who I think it is. But I think, first, by temperament, I think they're very good people. They have their heart in the right place, and that's the first and most important attribute you need as a political leader. Some of them are having to be thrown in the deep end very quickly, and in Singapore that means not just mastering the politics of the ground, but in Singapore it's very important to also understand policies and shape policies for the long term. And I think they're coping quite well, working well with the civil servants, asking tough questions, rethinking policies. They don't take existing policies as a given.
Earlier you talked about some minority MPs leading a GRC. Mm-hmm. Do you think the electorate is starting to look beyond race, perhaps?
Mm-hmm. I think it's evolving. It's partly generational. People have grown up differently. It will evolve. Singapore 20 or 30 years from now, I think, will be quite a different place. Quite a different place, both in politics as well as in society.
So there might be a non-Chinese Prime Minister in the future?
My own sense is if you talk about it, in 20 years, I'd say entirely possible. Entirely possible. I'd find it very odd if we only have Chinese Prime Ministers forever. I'd find it quite odd. I have no aspirations, by the way, to be Prime Minister. I enjoy being part of the team, contributing as much as I can.
So has politics been all that you expected it to be when you first agreed to join in 2001?
It has not been very different, but one thing that I have learned and found very warming is the fact that people change. Even someone who starts off being quite reckless and irresponsible, or families who just can't be bothered, they respond when you try to help, because they all feel a sense of obligation, you see. We're helping you because we feel you're actually capable of doing something much better, you're capable of a better job, your children are capable of better, we're going to help you. And people respond in a very heartwarming way, and you can turn people around. That is the most heartwarming part of my own experience.